Hello and welcome into episode 67 of the Calcio Connection podcast, connecting with you, Italian football fans from all over the world. We're going to break down this past weekend Serie A match day. We're going to break down what we've seen so far this week in Champions League. Inter fell to Real Madrid. We're recording this on Tuesday evening. That game happened earlier today. Jerry and I are in North American time, of course. Jerry's beloved Lazio is going to be shorthanded again. They're going to take on Zenit tomorrow, so we have plenty to break down. I am Alex Donno, and it's election day where I am down here in the United States, so it's just pure craziness tonight. I love the fact that we can kind of take my mind off of the craziness, and Jerry is north of the border in Canada, so he's just looking down at all of us Americans and just laughing and just watching what happens. He's watching all the chaos. Jerry, how you doing, sir?
Fuck the vote. I don't give a shit about it. I hate politics. It's all bullshit. It's all corrupted. I think I'll leave it like that before I say something that might harm me or get me in trouble.
What trouble you gonna get? You're not even in the same country. Don't worry about it, bro.
Who knows who lives here? Don't worry. who might come after me? But yeah. I'm just got to watch the Inter game. I just watched the Inter game today. I didn't watch anything else. I'll let you vent first because it's your team. Just excited to watch Lazio tomorrow. They'll be shorthanded. Won't be an easy task for Simone Inzaghi. Looking at the report today on Football Italia and other sources as well. There'll be no Thomas Trascoscia, no Lucas Leiva, no Ciro Immobile. Additionally, no Manuel Lazzari, no Luis Alberto, Stefan Radu, and Senna Lulic still nursing in injuries. And I believe Escalante is nursing an injury as well. I don't know what to believe with these tests. I know that Lazio is under investigation of the COVID-19 testing. I know that there were players that were negative for the Torino game, now positive again for Zenit. They were positive for Club Brugge. I don't know what to believe, what is right and wrong. I know people are going to say that Latito paid or Latito has a hand in it. I don't think that Latito has a hand in this. Personally, for what we've accomplished, very little has Latito done to accomplish much as if Juventus has done. So and that's a cheap shot. Yeah, I'll take that if you want. It's a cheap shot to Juventus, but and then Agnelli basically buying Scudettos in past history. But we'll give Latito one credit. He hasn't bought any championships, so I don't see why he would try to buy.
He's
to
probably
win a
too
game tomorrow.
cheap to pay the championship price, right? I mean, Lotito
Yeah.
probably is not willing to spend the money necessary for a Scudetto.
No, absolutely. I just don't. I don't buy that crap, man. I don't think. I know that people are thinking that Latito could be like the next hand of Agnelli, the way he's going and everything, but I don't buy that. I hope he doesn't get into politics. That's what scares me because then I can kind of see him going as a Berlusconi, not maybe as rich and buying as he does, but it can really influence him and turn him in a different direction. Maybe he'll sell the club. Might be good, might be bad. Who knows? But I will say one thing before I forget. There are going to be 16,000 fans or north of 20,000 between there
In
tomorrow
Zenit, right? In St.
in
Petersburg.
Zenit. I think this is a positive for Lazio tomorrow. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, why would you want to go to to Russia, wherever they're going? I don't know off the top of my head.
St. Petersburg.
St. Petersburg, thank you. And basically, you never want to be the away crowd with 16,000 fans. I think in times like now where you've been gone for a year without fans, this is a benefit for both sides. Where
For both sides, yeah, I agree with that.
Lazio will strive off just having that atmosphere of being a real game again, where normally all the Italian teams always play behind closed doors, no fans, and to have 16,000 fans ballpark to 20 is huge for them because now it feels like a real game. They got that live atmosphere. It gives them that motivation to prove them wrong. So I think in a ballpark, in a time where a year ago you would have said you don't want to go there where the fans are, to a year later or you want to thrive off those fans all of a sudden, it may work in the favor of Lazio as well. Because Lazio is a team that loves to play in front of the crowd, loves to have those people around them, and it gives them that incentive, that motivation. We saw last year when the season resumed how much it hurt them when they didn't have fans in attendance. So a
Mm-hmm.
game like tomorrow with fans in attendance, this can really benefit them, I think.
Well,
And
let me just fact check one thing though. You said that they were really hurt after COVID by not having fans in attendance. I mean, was that? I don't think that was the big issue. I think the big issue was playing 2 games a week benefited other clubs more than benefited Lazio. I thought that was the bigger issue. It wasn't as much about the fans to me because I mean we were saying all during the break when they weren't playing games for a couple of months, we were saying that like Lazio had maybe the best starting 11 in Serie A, but they didn't have the bench to compare with the likes of Juventus and Inter. And I think that to me, and I understand what you're saying about fans in Zenit, how it's just nice to feel like you're watching a real football game, and it's probably nice to be a player. And even if they're jeering at you and booing you and whistling at you, I think it is a nice change of pace when you've been playing in empty stadiums, to actually have some fans. But I mean, as far as I mean, I personally, I don't really see it as a huge benefit to either team. I mean, obviously, for Zenit, it's going to be their fans, so it may be a slight benefit to them. But you're talking about 60,000, not 80,000, right? I'm not sure how many people their stadium holds, but that's a small percentage. I don't know if that's 15%, 20% capacity, whatever it is. If it was a full stadium and it's 80,000 crazy Russians, then I think that's a huge advantage for Zenit. I think like a small crowd is just going to make both teams feel like, hey, this is kind of a real football game for us.
no, absolutely. And I think they were calling it the 12th man last season, or the 13th man, like the extra person for Lazio, where it was like a player having the crowd in attendance, that it was a boost to them. Now, I won't. It wasn't the factor of what really hurt their season, but it was a small piece of what they were missing. And when games were they seemed out of it, a lot of the time, like against Inter when they won 2-1, you had
Mm-hmm.
60,000, 65,000 people in attendance. That really rallied them to come back and win when they were down 1-0. So along the way, it was the ability to not have to worry about three competitions, the fact that they were able to rotate their squad much easier, and the fact that they had the fans behind them, and that became a reality that no longer was real. That they had to worry about 2-3 games a week, no fans in attendance, short squad, injuries, not enough depth. But tomorrow we'll see what happens with Noah Immobile. They showed last week that they can survive without him. We'll see
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. But Zenit's missing three of their key strikers. Malcolm's not playing. They have somebody else. I forgot. At the end of the day, they're all Zobs and Doos and Zabadovs, and I don't know. All their names sound the same, so that's all I can say. Freaking Zubobs and Juvobs and you name it.
Well, let's look back at Real Madrid's 3-2 win over Inter, and that was kind of a must-win game for both teams. Probably even more so Real Madrid because they were the home team, and they actually came in with 1 point less than Inter. But now this result, let me say, very damaging to Inter's hopes of getting out of Group B in Champions League. They're now sitting at the bottom of the group with 2 points. Borussia Mönchengladbach had a dominant and kind of shocking result, 6-0 against Shakhtar. I mean, the same Shakhtar that beat Real Madrid without 10 guys 2 weeks ago with COVID-19. They were completely shorthanded. They beat Real Madrid, and I think that was on the road as well, if I'm not mistaken. That was also in Madrid, I think. They held Inter to a scoreless draw, and then Borussia Mönchengladbach goes in there and just destroys them. So that I thought that was very surprising. So now Gladbach is actually atop the group. Real Madrid is right back in it with this result today. Inter is behind Shakhtar. So essentially, like I almost have to throw in the towel and like concede this Champions League group because Inter may have to win straight up, win all three of their remaining games. Like anything less than 9 points may not be enough to get out of that group. And so it's a real uphill climb. And big picture with Inter, Jerry, that I'm not too happy with Antonio Conte right now. And the reason why I'm not happy with Conte is only one victory in the last 7 games in all competitions. I mean, isn't that shocking? One victory in the last 7 games The only
Jesus.
victory was a week and a half ago, the 2-0 against Genoa. Outside of that, you have losses to Milan and Real Madrid, multiple draws in there, including a draw with Lazio, a draw with Parma this past weekend, which was an incredibly disappointing result. And I know it's very early in the Serie A season. Like I can't really draw too many conclusions yet in the Campionato. We're only 5 match days in, but Inter's sixth place right now, so it's a pretty poor start. You have Milan, who are almost perfect. They did have the one draw against Roma, but other than that, Milan is unbeaten in their last 23 games now. So they sit atop Serie A. Sassuolo, after their victory over Napoli, they sit now second place. I doubt the season finishes this way, but still, it's a pretty poor start for Inter. Juventus did get a victory this past weekend. But onto this Champions League game, Jerry. I think this was a really entertaining game for anyone who is either a neutral or obviously a Real Madrid supporter. Real Madrid got off great first half, 2-0 lead until Inter did get a late one goal from Lautaro Martinez. And let's talk about some of the goals that got through, because it comes down again to individual mistakes. I was not expecting Achraf Hakimi to have the really tough match he played. Maybe he's still a Madrista at heart because that's his former club, right? But I mean, that back pass that he gifted right to Benzema for the opening goal, that's the sort of mistake I would expect a guy like Alexander Kolarov to be making, not Achraf Hakimi, who, did make some good runs in the game. Like, he's very, very fast. We know that, but missed some goals, made some really poor mistakes, including what led to the opening goal. Sergio Ramos scored off a set piece. So at the 33rd minute, Real Madrid had the 2-0 lead in the game. Lautaro Martinez did score a beautiful goal. But, Jerry, let's talk about the assist, because for as negative as I am on Inter, and I'm an Interista, so it's tough love for me, right? I'm not a hater. I love Inter, but I'm very disappointed with the way they've been playing. But one guy that I cannot be disappointed in is Nicolo Barella. He has been fantastic. You see what he's capable of doing with the Azzurri. Was brilliant during the last international break. We see now the way he really brings Inter to life. I've always, last year, I kind of knew Barella more for his, box to box, his slide tackles, his toughness, his energy, covering every blade of grass. And now he's really become a pinpoint accurate passer. And he played a back heel to Lautaro Martinez to set up Inter's first goal. And we've kind of gotten used to seeing Barella play amazing balls. And, Lautaro, you could say, was probably the man of the match for Inter. And maybe you could argue out of both teams, maybe played the best game today, in a losing effort for Inter. I was happy to see Lautaro play well because, Jerry, he's been really poor in the league lately. It almost makes you wonder if he's starting to think, oh, maybe Barcelona is going to buy me in the next transfer window or something like that, which he struggled with last year. But no, I was happy to see Lautaro score a nice goal. I was happy to see him play well. I was happy to see Ivan Perisic score. He scored in the second half, and that was in the 68th minute. And at that time, that equalized. That made the game 2-2. So I started to dream a little bit because, Jerry, for stretches in the second half, Inter played really well. It looked like they were starting to control the game. And then, Rodrigo scores on a brilliant strike on a cross that got past way too many legs to set up that beautiful go-ahead goal to make it 3-2. I mean, you can imagine what my emotional state was like watching this game, knowing how important it was for Inter, but also knowing how important it was for Real Madrid, right? Because they were desperate. They had really poor form in their first two Champions League matches. I was listening to Zinedine Zidane during the week, and he said, we're going to treat this game like it's a final. I don't know if Antonio Conte got that memo to treat this game like a final, but he was outbalded by Zinedine Zidane today. And I'm just left. And again, I mean, coming into the game, you would not have surprised me one bit if you said Real Madrid was going to win a one-goal game. I wasn't very optimistic about Inter's chances to win it. I thought maybe they could get a draw, and they came very close to getting a draw. But obviously I'm gutted by it because Inter have not been winning games lately, period. And they hit a couple crossbars again tonight. So at times you thought they were playing well enough to actually take control of this game. And the other thing, and I want to get you in on this part of the conversation as well, on the one hand, in some of these games, you can't completely blame Conte because Conte is not the one making poor defensive errors, right? And Conte is not the one who's botching, chances to score, right? So, I mean, you have to blame the players for a lot of these mistakes. But I see Conte not using a substitute until the 78th minute. Conte brings on a bum like Raja Nainggolan, who clearly does not want to be at Inter. Like Raja, maybe they should have found a way to let him go back to Cagliari because his heart clearly is not in Milano. I'm really down on the way he's played. And you also bring on Gagliardini, and you leave Christian Eriksen on the bench, who's in Conte's doghouse. I think we all know that by now. So I thought waiting too long to make your substitutes, not bringing on the right people to try and change that game. Conte doesn't get all of the blame because, again, he's not actually on the pitch trying to score goals and making defensive errors. A lot of that goes on the players. But I can't be happy with Conte today because Inter had chances to win that game.
No, absolutely. That was the first thing I came to my mind is that he made two substitutions, I believe, in the 77th minute, and he brought on Gagliardini and Sanchez.
Yeah, and Sanchez wasn't it tonight. Unfortunately, just wasn't it.
I think Sanchez is not the same player we saw last year. So far, what I've seen, he doesn't look that very aggressive, sparking player. He comes off the bench and makes an impact. Who I would have liked to see, and I now just seen that he was part of the lineup with Pinamonti. He is a true number 9. I don't know why this guy is not getting more playing time. You had him out the last 2 seasons on loan, playing with, I believe, with Genoa, and he's gained a lot of experience. And that's a guy who should be playing up top and coming in for Perisic. He is a opposite player of Martinez, and Pinamonti has shown that he can hold up the play. He can hold up the ball and gain in possession, similar to Lukaku, but not the same strength that he possesses. Now, I would say one player who really impressed me was Perisic. I thought playing as a false number 9 and playing up front with Martinez, he looked really good and he started to settle in. Now here's one thing, and I tweeted this all about Lazio, and I'll say it about Inter. You got a lot of new players that are still trying to mesh. You got Vidal, who wasn't there last season. You got Perisic, who wasn't there last season. You have Nainggolan, who's back from loan. You have Darmian, who just came over from Parma. Eriksen arrived late last season.
Mm-hmm.
And the chemistry, I find, is not there. Kolarov wasn't there last season.
Yeah.
And I said this about Lazio, that we have a lot of players who arrived late from the transfer market, who came back from COVID, from injuries, and the chemistry is not there. And I won't say names, but I was called out saying we don't have time to wait and build chemistry. Well, guess what? That is the downfall when you buy 7 new players to come into your lineup.
Especially when you have virtually no preseason this year. Like, there was barely a preseason this summer.
Exactly. So you can't just say, oh, yes, and Conte is partially to blame. Why didn't you use all 5 substitutions? I think the biggest downfall here, and every time I watch a game with my wife, I'll give her credit. Every time she sees Simone Inzaghi bring on a guy with 10 minutes left, she always says it takes 5 minutes just for that player's legs to get warmed up, to start to get into the game. So she always says to me, well, if you come in the 70th minute, you still have 20 minutes to make an impact, to get into the game, to get a rhythm. What are you going to do with 5 minutes? Bring in Nainggolan at 86th minute. What is that going to do with 4 minutes left?
Well, they should have never brought in that bum. I can't stand Nainggolan right now.
Is it really his fault that when he comes in for 10 minutes, what's he going to do though? They're not even playing the guy. He hasn't even, has he started a game yet? I don't know. You know better than I do.
No, I don't think so. But also, like, he was so bad against Parma when he came on. Like, he looks like he doesn't want to be there. Like, he's not giving any effort for the shirt. He had a little bit more time in that game. I don't know. I'm just really down on Nainggolan right now. And to be fair, he did miss some time for COVID. So, listen, I don't know. Maybe some guys take longer to regain their fitness. He's a smoker, for what it's worth. So
That doesn't help.
maybe it's going to take him a little bit more time to like regain full fitness. I don't know if he's like 100% right from all that. But yeah, no, I just he hasn't really provided anything this season, and we've only seen him as a substitute. Fair, but you would look at Inter's bench, and on paper, you're thinking that bringing on a guy like that should be an impact sub, and he's had zero impact whatsoever.
No, for sure. And their defense is a little scary.
Yeah,
That way. I didn't know. I thought everybody criticizes like Lazio's defense and like how we don't have a guy after a Cherby, and we brought a guy like Wesley Hoot, and a lot of people say we don't do buybacks. First off, whoever made this stupid rule, we don't do buybacks, please let me know because it's the stupidest rule ever. If I ever had Messi on my team, let's just say example, and then he was sold at some time, and I had the privilege to bring him back, would you not buy him? No, I know
Of course.
Messi. I know Messi's not Wesley Hoot or in other situations.
You could say that again.
But like when you can bring a player back, and one, he shows the desire to come back, and two, 3 years later has shown that he has learned the game and has improved himself. I think that means a lot. You can't judge a player until you know what they can offer, and that's what we're seeing with Lazio with Hoot. But I don't want to get sidetracked. I don't get this buyback rule. I don't know who made this stupid rule. If Chelsea was told today you want Hazard back, fucking give me Hazard. I wouldn't even think twice. I take Aiden Hazard. The guy's getting buried in Real Madrid. I wish he never went there. I don't like it. He didn't look good today. He just seems out of sorts.
He said all those injury problems. I think he needs more time to come to get fit.
I get that. I just think that Chelsea was his home. That was his home. That was his place. It worked well for him. The style, play, everything. But I don't want to drift off here because I do that a lot. But
well, no, I want to add one thing, Jerry, because this is a stat. It goes because you were talking about Inter's defensive problems, okay? And I credit our friend Carlo Gaglianese for tweeting this out after the game because I knew this was not a good stat. I didn't have the number in front of me, but in 9 games played so far this season, Champions League and Serie A, Inter have given up 15 goals in 9 games played. Like, that's poor. That's very. I mean, last season, Inter had the number 1 defense in fewest goals allowed a season ago, and a big part of that was you didn't have so many injury issues and illness issues with the back line. I mean, this year it's already been a revolving door because Skriniar has had COVID-19 and Bastoni and De Vrij had an injury and missed some time. So you've already had kind of a revolving door in the back line to begin with. You also had Godin last season. But, I mean, to be honest, like Godin didn't really start playing well until very late in the season last year. So it was really like the guys you depended on mostly were when they were all healthy, were De Vrij, who was the best of the 3 by far last year, Bastoni, who came on and played great, and Skriniar, who was uneven in the back 3, but still had a pretty good season. And you haven't really had those guys playing so well. And De Vrij has been really poor the last few games. As the Lazio man, you're always very quick to point that out to me, that De Vrij has not been good these last few games. But now the stat on Inter's defense is pretty shocking. I honestly, I think the balance has been better to be fair for the last few games, because early in the season, the balance was horrific because the front line and the midfield were always pressed so high that anytime they gave up possession, their defenders were just hung out to dry. Like the back 3 was hung out to dry, and the opposition could just make these big runs into space. I think the balance has gotten better over the last few games, which is good. I don't sweat as much on the counterattacks, but they're still making these bad individual mistakes like what Hakimi did today that, finds a way to cost this team goals. So even though the balance has gotten better, they're still making stupid-ass mistakes.
No, absolutely. And I'm looking at their defense. Ranocchia, Darmian, Kolarov, and you got D'Ambrosio on the field. And I find that they all have something in common. Even Skriniar, they're all slow. Mm-hmm. They're all slow, and they're not very reactive. And I think that's what's hurting their back end. Like I just think they're not quick players. They're not very responsive. A guy like Stefan de Vrij can really like responds quickly. He's alert. He's a very quick, athletic player. Bastoni is really becoming into that player where he's very athletic. He's very fast. He's mobile. The others I mentioned, I just think that they're not bad, but they're just like, would they be would the defense you guys have, would they be better suited in a back four? I
I
think
think
that
so.
like I think that might be better. Like I
Conte's too stubborn. Honestly, I think Conte's too stubborn. And well, let me ask you a question, Jerry. I want your unbiased opinion on this because you don't have the vested interest in Inter that I have. But I think this is the meat and potatoes question. Even though there are certain things you can't blame all on coaching, individual errors cannot necessarily be blamed on coaching. Inter is still an ambitious club, and they have the highest paid manager in Serie A by far, with Antonio Conte getting his 12 million net per season. Do you think Conte is on the hot seat? Like, do you think that if this doesn't turn around very quickly, we always talk about in Serie A the managers who don't get to eat the panettone at Christmas because you get sacked before Christmas. In your opinion, and I'll give you my opinion after yours, Jerry, but in your opinion, if Inter doesn't go on a winning streak here, like now, do you think Conte's job is going to be in serious jeopardy soon?
I don't think so. I think that it's just too much money to be on the hook for. Well,
Yeah.
you said 12, 13 million. That's just a
Yeah.
lot of money to tie up. Now, then again, Inter did just spend 186 million in the last two seasons in the transfer market. So, if you really want to compare 13 million to that, it's peanuts.
Yeah.
Now, the only way I can see this happening is if there's a very good manager that comes in and replaces him. Not a I don't know how you want to say it. Not
Caretaker.
another not a caretaker. Like it has to be someone that is that can take him to the next level. They're not gonna waste time to bring in another schmuck in. Like Allegri would come in. I would assume maybe an Allegri. Would that be possible? I don't know. I don't know the history. I
I
don't.
mean, I think it would be possible in the term of he potentially now. I think a lot of managers don't necessarily like to take a job in season. I think that's the one thing that makes it
Yeah,
complicated. Okay. I think that's the one thing that makes it complicated because you're always put in a tough spot when you take over a job 2, 3 months into a season. So I'll keep that in mind. Now,
yes.
under normal circumstances, I think Allegri would probably like the job. But there's two obstacles, right? You brought up one of those obstacles is it's a ton of money to have to pay Conte not to work when they're already paying Spalletti not to work. So that wage bill for coaches starts to get massive, right? And then Allegri, he wouldn't be as expensive as Conte, but he wouldn't be cheap. Like a 7, 8 mil, it probably would be what he's looking for per season. So not Conte high, but extremely like astronomically high wages still. So I don't know. I think if not for the pandemic and all of the lost revenue, like if this were a year ago and we didn't even know coronavirus was going to be a thing, then I think Suning would maybe be willing to take that kind of a financial hit if they thought they're getting the right manager. But I just don't know if they can afford to do that with all the revenue that they've lost on the balance sheet due to COVID-19. So that makes it really tough. Um, you know, if Inter were to hypothetically lose their next two matches, right, you have a very beatable looking Atalanta coming up at the weekend. I think that's pretty close to being a must win. If Inter loses that game or they lose it ugly, then the spotlight really goes on a Conte, right? If they were to lose to Atalanta and then after the international break, they lose another one to Real Madrid because they play Real Madrid again the next Champions League match, the return match at the San Siro. So if they were to lose their next two matches, then you might reach a situation where, yeah, Suning is going to say it's super expensive to sack Conte, but we've also invested a ton of money in this squad. And, we can't afford to potentially miss out on Champions League, right? Because I know that coming into the season, everybody is talking about, oh, Scudetto contenders, Scudetto favorites. But if you keep losing matches here, I know it's still early in the season, but then you start to wonder, hey, like not only are we not going to win a Scudetto, we need to make sure we confirm a top 4 spot, because if we don't make top 4, then we lose a ton more revenue. And I think that's when Suning starts to make the calculations in his head that, okay, even though it would be really expensive to sack this coach who's going to want to make every penny that he's owed, like he's not going to give us much of a settlement, if anything, and then we hire another high-priced coach, but is that the only way we can preserve Champions League would be to bring in a guy like Allegri to stop the bleeding? So the short answer to the question is I don't think his seat is that hot yet, because I think and it sucks to lose these Champions League games, but the bigger objective is in the Serie A right now, right? But then if you lose, let's say, your next 2 Serie A matches, and forgive me, I'm not sure who Inter has after Atalanta after the international break. I'll have to look at that, but I think it might be another semi-tough game, but I'll double check on that. But yeah, if you were to lose your next 2 Serie A matches, or you lose Atalanta and Real Madrid, and then you're staring like a must-win in the face after that, then I think they'll really start to think about it. But I don't want to put out the gloom and doom scenario, because as of right now, I don't think the seat is hot. But what I'm saying is, Jerry, the seat could get hot soon.
You have Torino actually after.
Oh, okay.
After the break, that could
win that game.
That could be Torino's new manager debut. Who knows?
Right, and Torino, with the start that they've had, they're due for a win.
But I have a question to anybody who's watching this show. Is Antonio Conte the highest paid manager for 13 million? Because I think that's ridiculous how much he makes. First off, to even get that contract, like even before the contract was official.
I mean, I think the highest paid in the world, I believe, is Pep Guardiola. But I don't know if Conte is 2 or 3 or what he is, but I can double check that.
I know his track record is pretty impressive, but for 13 million, I'm sorry, it's not. That's a little too much for me, for my blood.
You know what? This is crazy. I was wrong about this. Conte, I knew this and I forgot about it. Okay, here are the top football managers paid in the world, and I know that like 30 seconds ago when I said Guardiola, people are probably yelling at the computer or at their phone after hearing me say that. So Diego Simeone is the highest paid manager in Europe.
The fuck does he achieve?
He's making I don't know if this is like the total contract or what's due left on the contract, but Simeone is the highest paid manager in the world. Antonio Conte is actually number 2, and Pep Guardiola is number 3.
Jesus Christ!
Wow.
Diego Simeone, what has he won? What has he achieved? The fuck has he achieved?
He grabbed his crotch on live TV. That's his biggest accomplishment there.
Oh my god, that guy must have spiked the owner's freaking drink and said, "Here, sign this shit, man." Like, I don't fucking know, man. These guys are they're all freaking. My god, I like Pep Guardiola, so I'm not gonna trash him. He at least he's proven results, and he's really established Man City into a really well-established club. But man, but I will give credit to Conte for one thing, and we've seen that. Hold on, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Something just popped up my internet.
Did you get like a pop-up ad or something?
You might have to edit this. Hold on.
No problem.
There's like music going on here. Okay.
I can't even hear it, so that's
no, you can't because it's on my.
Because you got the headphones on.
Yeah, I just edit that out. I had like music right in my ears. That's like blooper. That's like a blooper moment. With the one thing I'll give credit to Antonio Conte is he has really gotten the best out of Barella. And I think before Barella came to Inter, he was still developing into a player, trying to get the best out of himself. And you're seeing a different compete level from him. And I say this because I feel that had Tonali came to Inter, we would probably be seeing the same thing under Tonali, where he would flourish as a complete midfielder, and he would have learned a lot from Conte as compared to Pioli. Nothing against Pioli. I think that Conte has proven to get the best out of players, to develop players.
It depends on the player. I think Christian Eriksen would say otherwise.
Well, Christian Eriksen is at a different level in his career where he's already established himself as a player, whereas Barella, he came at a level where there was a lot of potential and he was on the horizon. And last year we saw Tonali that he's at that level where he still has a lot of potential but hasn't hit that peak yet. Now, I just think that with Conte, he even did that with the wing back on Chelsea. It's a blank right now. Oh my God.
Marcos.
Yeah, Marcos Alonso. Marcos Alonso 2 seasons ago was a loss, and he got the best out of Marcos Alonso. And as soon as he left, Marcos Alonso wasn't the same player. So I will give credit that Conte can get the best out of certain players. Now, the thing is he needs to get all 11 together and get the best out of them. Now, Hakimi made a bad pass this game. There's one thing I'm going to take out of this whole lineup. Vidal's got to stop with the reckless challenges because he's a reckless player. This guy's a reckless walking time bomb. And I'm telling you, he is going to take someone's leg out. And when the minute he takes someone's leg out, his head's going to come out. That's all I can say. And another thing is, I was very disappointed not to see Eriksen in this game. I think that was the guy who should have came in for Brozovic. I was expecting Eriksen to come in at some time, maybe at the 60th minute mark. And a guy like Eriksen would have made a big difference in this game. He would have provided that creativity, that flow in the midfield. Even with 20 minutes left, he just gives you that ball movement, that flow that I felt that was missing at times. Brozovic doesn't seem like the same player that he was prior to mid-season last year. I think his off-field situations where is drinking and driving, and I don't know if it's got depression or something.
He also had that thing where they called the police on him when he was at the hospital with his friend. Like, he got arrested for that too. Like, he's had a weird year.
I just think that he's not the same player, and his off-field issues are really affecting him. And there are moments where he looks like a really good player and he makes those key timely challenges and can really make those nice long passes. But then it goes through long stretches where we don't know where he ends up going. Like, it's just, he's invisible to me. So that's someone who really needs to either change his game. But again, Conte loves him. He'll go by him because he hates Eriksen. I don't know. I would love to know who really made this deal for Eriksen, because either the owners fucked up on that one or Conte fucked up on that one.
I think it was an opportunity buy. I think they saw an opportunity to get a player at value, right? Considering what he would have been worth in a normal transfer window if his contract wasn't expiring, in the following window, because his contract would have expired in the summer. They got him in January at a slash rate. They paid and good negotiating actually by Daniel Levy and Tottenham, because I know Inter really wanted to pay less than what they paid for him, but Levy held out for the 20 million. Inter eventually caved in. They paid 20 million, but still, like, getting a guy for 20 million who the summer before that probably would have been worth closer to 70, 80 million. Like, it was definitely a bargain. And even if he is not getting playing time, if they did sell him in January and the summer, they're going to get a hell of a lot more than the 20 million they paid for him. So I think it was an opportunity buy. Let me be honest with you, Jared, because for a long time, I was really a Christian Eriksen defender. And maybe it's still a little bit unfair how few opportunities he's getting, but whenever I see him lately on the pitch, whether he's starting or coming on as a sub, I am starting to turn on him a bit, because the energy and the effort is just not there with that guy, right? And you can see, like, when he's subbed on, he's not making an impact. Like, he's not adding enough dynamism. And then when he starts and he's subbed off, immediately when he comes off the pitch, the energy from the midfield goes up. Eriksen, in his favor, I'll say he's incredibly skilled and incredibly creative, right? Like, you can see the makings, and he's been a world-class player before. Not currently, but he's been a world-class player before. You can see the world-class footprint from him, okay? But the guy doesn't run hard enough. The guy doesn't play enough defense, not enough tackles, not enough effort. I mean, you just compare the way Eriksen plays to a guy like Barella, And I know that they're not necessarily similar players. However, Conte has been using Barella in an attacking mid role, similar to what he would use Eriksen in. And you can clearly see a difference in the energy and just the speed that Barella plays with versus Eriksen, who sometimes he looks like he sleepwalks through games. Okay. Now, from Eriksen, I don't know if some of his lack of effort may have to do with the fact that he's already kind of given up on Conte, and Conte is just, Eriksen has just decided, like, this guy doesn't like me. I'm not going to play for this guy. So maybe that's part of it. So maybe some people can blame Conte for not getting the best out of him. But I will tell you, in Eriksen's recent performances, I'm no longer defending him like I used to, because I just don't think he brings enough of a spark, and he doesn't play hard enough. He sleepwalks through too many games. You can see the talent, you just don't see the effort.
I think that's unfair. Like, similar situation was Velan Brescia on Lazio. Mm-hmm. How does a player play for 2 games, so doesn't appear for 5, comes in back for 2, out for 3? It didn't work out for him because, first off, you need to get that consistent flow, that consistent game time in, and you need the backing of your manager as well. If you don't have that confidence from your manager, it's hard to get involved. It's hard to want to be there. So that's kind of on Conte as well. Even if you don't like the player, try to use him to the best of his ability. That's your job as a manager. And I think that's one thing that sometimes Conte lacks in. And he lets his personal feelings get in the way far too often, I find. But at the end of the day, this is a sticky situation where I think either you send him on loan if you're not going to use him, or use him. There's no point of keeping up a roster spot.
Or sell him, right? I mean,
you
say send him on loan, but maybe you decide to sell him, right? I mean, and let me say this, all right? If they can, and I don't know what the market's going to be like in January. Like, I don't know if clubs are still going to be poor, if rich clubs are still going to have to be stingy because they've lost all this revenue. I don't know if it's going to be a booming market in January, but let me say this. If you could, hypothetically, and I'm not saying I necessarily expect these guys to end up at Inter because there's going to be a number of teams who want them, but if you could hypothetically sell Eriksen and bring in either a Locatelli or even a Rodrigo De Paul from Udinese, I think they might be better fits. I think they might be better fits for Conte. I think they might be, I mean, we already see them in Serie A, so they could be better fits for the league, right? That I think that could end up being a plus. And if you could bring in a Locatelli or even a Rodrigo De Paul, I think they might thrive better at Inter than Eriksen.
No, absolutely. Again, it all depends, right? What happens, but it is what it is, right? I guess that's what it comes down to. But I know one team that got their ass whooped. I'll shift this out of Inter now because I think we spent a lot of time on Inter. I know that Atalanta got fucking ass whooped, and I loved it.
Well, and let me tell you something. And I gamble a lot, okay? And I pay closer attention to Serie A than I do to Premier League. And I know that, like, Liverpool, they don't have VVD, but still heading into that Champions League match between Atalanta and Liverpool, Jerry, I see that Atalanta has not been clicking this season. Their back line has been horrendous, and they have injuries on the back line. When I looked this morning at the sports book and I saw that Liverpool was only favored by a half a goal, I was shocked, okay? So I jumped on that. To see Liverpool only favored by half a goal, like, that was a no-brainer. And maybe it's just because I don't know the full story on Liverpool, but maybe it's just because I watch a lot more Serie A and I see that and Atalanta did win this past weekend against Crotone, but it was not exactly a beautiful performance, right? But I looked at that line and I saw that Liverpool was only favored by a half a goal, and I'm thinking they're going to win by 2 or 3 goals easy, and they end up slapping Atalanta 5-0. I know you loved every second of it. You're not a big fan of Gasperini.
Oh, I hate Gasperini. I can't stand the piece of shit, man. Like, he's ignorant, doesn't shake people's hands. I know recently he hasn't had, like, excuses or anything, but I said at the beginning of the year I had Atalanta finishing in 5th, and I'll even have them going down further to 6th or 7th soon. because this is a team that everyone's like, oh, they banked in on I don't know, freaking Castagna for 30 million, and they sold that they sold the young player, what's his name, for 32 million to Manchester United. His name, hold on, I'm looking right now.
And they also
Traore. They sold Traore for 32 million, and like this is a defense that stinks. Okay, it's raunchy. Palomino is not a good defender. Toloi is not great. Jim City is not great. They're three liabilities. Let's go by or whatever they got on loan. Christian Romero, the guy who had the most like fouls last year, and he's a dangerous liability. Like I look at their bench today, and you got I don't even know who their defenders are after that. To be honest with you, Ilicic didn't come into the game. I know you have Moranchik who scored a splendid goal, and you got Lammers that is on the bench. Like I get these guys are there, but they're not. They're good players for the future, but they're not players to make a difference now. You go look at Liverpool's lineup. Salah, you got Diego Jota that can come into the lineup now.
He scored a hat trick today.
Well, exactly. You got Mane. Oh, we got Keita on the bench. We got Milner on the bench. Like you got Firmino on the bench. Origi on the bench. Matip on the bench. You got players who can make a difference, and the depth of Atalanta is starting to be proven. Mojica started today, or Mojica, whatever you want to call it. Like, is that a guy who you're gonna rely on to cover? I forgot who was injured for this game. Actually, I know they were missing one. Gosens, that's it. I think Mojica covered Gosens in that spot, and like, is that a guy who you rely on in a Champions League game? Like, it's nice to have Muriel up front and Zapata, and then you take one of those guys off. It's no longer. Yeah, you have Ilicic. You got three good, strong, solid forwards. Who replaces Papu Gomez if he's to go down? Like, I don't know. Is there anybody as Malinowski? Like, yeah, Malinowski can play in the midfield. He's a good player. He can strike from distance, but there's flaws to his game still. I just think that this is a team that's overachieved, and now we're starting to see that. Their high was like Lazio last year, where we saw that high streak, and it kind of tumbled down. Now we're starting to see the Atalanta of the bad that's starting to come, and the inconsistency, and that spark that they didn't show from last year. And that's because they were able to ride off that momentum last year. This year, it's not the same feeling. Castagna being sold maybe was a big mistake. I don't know who else they really lost. They didn't really buy anybody. With the amount of money that they did make in the transfer market, I'm surprised they weren't more active in buying players that are ready for now to help win games. That would have really helped this team. They need experienced players, and that's what's hurting them. I'll say it again. People can hate all they want on Lazio, but they bought players who are ready to win now. They got a guy like a Vedat Murici who is proven in the Turkish league and starting to slowly come around. They bought a few players that can come off the bench and make a difference. They have gradually have strengthened their squad with continuity, retaining good players. So, and that's something that I know Atalanta likes to build from their youth academy. They build within. They like to go youth talent, but sometimes you can't just depend on youth. You need to like build around that. And I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased on Lazio. I will agree on that. I just like the way that we don't just we spend wisely, and a lot of people didn't like their transfer market. I thought that it wasn't as bad as people think it is. But aside from that, I just think that Atalanta's going to struggle this season. I really do, though. I don't think they're going to finish in the top 4 spot. I will solidify and stay on that spot. And I don't even think they're going to advance out of their group in top 2. I think they'll take the 3rd spot, but they won't pass Ajax. I think Ajax is too good. they really should have beaten. Well, they were fortunate to tie against them, but I don't think they'll win as the visitors next time around. I just there's something about this team that's just not there, and I just don't like their coach, and I just like I never liked them last year. I just think that they were just on a hot streak, and people overvalued them, in my opinion. There's just something about this team that is just an average team. That's what they are.
Well, I want to wrap up this episode because I got to check. Apparently, this election is really heating up. We're taping this on
Who's
Tuesday
gonna
night.
win? Conte? Is Conte gonna be the new president of USA? Can
he's
you
gonna
imagine?
he's gonna sweep the electoral college. I wrote him in. I wrote in Antonio Conte. Of course, he's gonna sweep this thing. But before we wrap it up, I know that our Milanisti friends would be mad if we don't mention that they won again. They beat Udinese 2-1,
How
and
fucking fortunate, kid. There was a fucking foul in the box that should have been called. I
yeah,
will look. I don't remember what it was, but there was a call that should have been called on Milan. It was not called. Uh, Screw it. But you know what?
I give credit to Zlatan though. Like Zlatan has been incredible. I think
That's
you could
true.
argue to, I think you could argue to this point, he's the best player in Serie A right now this season. Right? I
No,
mean
absolutely.
that could obviously change, but Zlatan has been incredible. He's been the focal point for Milan. I think both on and off the pitch, his leadership. And he can't stop scoring. I mean, he's a 39-year-old dude, and he scores on an overhead kick, the game-winning goal. Now, I think any time you score on an overhead kick, that's an incredibly athletic thing to do. But if you had told me, imagine what a 39-year-old's overhead kick would look like, I think it looked like that. Like it's weird because he found a way to do like a really athletic thing, looking unathletic doing it, but it was an incredible goal. So listen, credit to Milan. I hope they come back down to earth, but they're unbeaten in 23 matches dating back to last season. They're top of the Serie A table right now. Our buddies of ours like Rui and Michael Lisi, they're just drinking and partying every single day. In fact, Lisi was going to join us on this episode, but I think he's so drunk from all these Milan wins. Like he has to sober up before he's going to join us. So yeah, congratulations to them. And that's going to do it for this episode. Tremendous stuff from Jerry Mancini. As always, I'm Alex Donno. Make sure you follow our show on Twitter at CalcioConPod. Make sure you subscribe if you're listening right now to the pod or if you're watching it on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your pods. Subscribe, hit a 5-star rating. We really appreciate that. A nice review, if you can leave one, also goes a long way. And we will talk to you guys next time on the Calcio Connection podcast. Ciao.